Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. For those who don't know me, my name is Leo, leader of CDV Youth, and this is my wonderful wife.
Diane.
Oh,
Hello.
I thought you would say wife, Diana, but I guess we didn't rehearse that. We didn't
No,
rehearse
we didn't
that.
rehearse.
Yes, absolutely. So we're gonna go ahead and just play it off the cuff a little bit.
Okay.
I've been studying 1 Samuel 17 and really getting into the story of two people, of Samuel and of David. But before that, I mean, Thanksgiving is next week. And by the way, you guys are all welcome to join us tomorrow for our Thanksgiving celebration. We're going to be at Alfonso's house. We'll go ahead and put the address on the
Messages
comments.
for the yeah.
Yes, that way you
Messages.
guys can. What's that?
Messages for the address.
Yes. So go ahead and shoot us a message. It's gonna be awesome. It's actually my favorite thing that we do together, besides outreach. Because what happens is there was this one year we went to Italy, or is that the yeah we went to Italy for
Thanksgiving,
Thanksgiving,
yes.
and I the only downfall was that we missed Thanksgiving,
Dinner.
and we were so yeah, you're right. We missed Thanksgiving dinner. We didn't skip a day. You're absolutely right. But the downfall was that we got so sick over there that nobody trusted any of the food, and we were actually in Paris on actual
That day.
Thanksgiving Day. And do you want to announce what we had for Thanksgiving dinner that day?
My favorite food in the world, McDonald's.
We had McDonald's. Pathetic.
Hey.
Because I love Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is really just Christmas without the hassle of presents.
Yes.
I mean, because our tree is up.
Yes.
I mean, we're playing games. We're enjoying each other's company. I mean, what else could you ask for? But before we get started, we're going to pray, and then you're going to tell me what you're thankful for. All
Okay.
right? Lord, thank you for having us here. Thank you for everything that you do. Please allow your Holy Spirit to be here. Allow it to guide us through your word, translate it, impact our lives with it. Allow it to get to our hearts and in our minds and to our feet so that we can go out there and be that servant, be that hope giver that you want us to be. And all the glory be to Jesus Christ. Amen. All
Amen.
right, guys. So what are you thankful for?
Oh my gosh. Everything. Yes. It's my least favorite now. Yeah, McDonald's. Sorry. No. Oh my gosh. It sounds corny, but like everything. I'm very thankful, for my family, my husband, my son. Very thankful for
Oh, that's me.
yes. I don't tell you, but I'm grateful for you. Um, Honestly, like the last couple of months, how much we've been growing and growing together and growing in the
Ooh,
sense
let's get into that. Sure.
of just knowing that there is a bigger purpose for us, for me, because we're talking about me right now. There's a bigger purpose for me, to help others and be of service for others, and like it's not just me and my world, because I was happy living in my bubble before. I lived under a rock and I loved it. But just knowing that I can do something for others, not about me.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yes. So, what do you feel? Do you feel like these last couple of months of growing, like you're saying, have they been easy?
No, not at all. Not easy. But it's
Absolutely
good.
not. But that's the thing is sometimes we have to embrace the really sucky parts of life
Mm-hmm.
because the sucky parts of life make us
Is what makes
grow.
you grow.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you think about it, like that tough class that you had, that family member that passed away, things like that. Those instances are the ones that really helped you find out who you were as a person as well as find out who you are as a family. Where your reliable people in your life are at,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, um, we're gonna go ahead and get into the word, and today we're gonna be talking about being anointed. Okay, do you know what's anointed mean?
I'm actually not 100% sure. Like the spirit of God coming onto into you.
It's being called to do something.
Okay, called to do something.
Being called to do something by God, because anyone could call you to do something, right?
Right.
And what I've seen in the word that I've been studying is that God is going to bless you. God is going to be with you 100%. But then there's always like a little if. And that if is if you are in his purpose, or if you are following his word,
Mm-hmm.
or if you are being guided by his light. And that's what it is we end up putting our own spin on things, right? Oh, well, let me finish explaining this. The covenants
Squirrel.
part,
Okay.
don't, so that I don't forget. So the big thing is we like to kind of make deals with God. Like, if you allow me to be successful at this, then I'm going to go ahead and serve you forever,
Mm-hmm.
right? Instead of serving him, showing him, hey, you know my heart. And you know that if you give me this much, then I'm going to give you this much, because he knows who your heart is.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes during that really hard, sucky part is really just him trying to make sure, how are you in a crisis? How are you when it's difficult? How are you
How
when
faithful and loyal are you going to be
how faithful
to
and
trust
loyal
in
are
him?
you? Because how
Mhm.
faithful and loyal is he?
Very, 100%.
Absolutely. So, can you go ahead and explain what we were studying? Philippians 6,
Ephesians,
was it Ephesians? Okay, so
right?
Ephesians. And he's talking about covenants.
Oh, that's what you meant. Sorry. I brought this up and I totally forgot. Um, yeah, because we're talking about how honoring your mother and father is the first promise with, or
The
sorry, the
first,
first commandment with the promise. Um, you just want me to say what I asked you?
explain what you said about
Oh, okay.
a covenant as opposed to.
Yeah, and so I realized that how it specifies that it's the first commandment with the promise, and how sometimes we feel like you might be able to explain
So,
what we
so a
yeah,
covenant is just a fancy word for a
a promise.
promise.
Uh-huh.
And what is a promise when one person is promising it?
It's just one
It's
person, yeah,
one-sided,
like a
right?
pact. Mm-hmm. That's what
But
it is.
but when you have a pact, a
Mm-hmm.
covenant,
Mm-hmm.
both of us
You
have
both have
gotten
to agree. Mm-hmm.
together and we agree. It's almost like a blood oath.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but this is with God. So so what were you explaining about it? I don't want to hijack
Oh no,
your
it's okay. I'm sure you
awesome.
explain it better than I do. um, how yeah, like sometimes, like Leo was saying, we're like, okay, well, God, if you do this for me, then I'll do this for you. You kind of like make your own little promise or covenant with him. However, to make that covenant, to make a pact with somebody, like both parties have to agree.
Yes. And I think it's okay for you to go ahead and pray and say, please help me do this, but you also have to listen
Mm-hmm.
and look. If you're doing something but you keep on hitting pitfalls after pitfalls and things get worse for you,
Mm-hmm.
then you're like, yeah, this isn't something that God wants me to do. But if your life is improving, if you're learning, if you're growing as a person in your pursuit of that thing, then bam,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely that's what
Yeah.
he made us for.
And then something else that you've touched on before, like, sometimes when we be like, okay, if you know how we say, I'll follow you, I'll do whatever you promise something. If you do this for me, like we expect it to be right away. And sometimes God like is like, well, now it's not your time. Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes it's yes, but not right now.
Sure.
So we might be like, okay, we'll give up, and you break your own promise that you made with him.
Wow.
But
Yes.
you didn't follow through because you didn't
Because
wait
we're
long enough.
conditionally faithful,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he's just faithful at all times.
Yep.
All right. So that's how we're gonna get into this. Okay? So we need to explain who Samuel is. Can you explain who Samuel is?
No.
Samuel is a prophet at the times of David. All right. So this was um, back when, after Israel gets out of Egypt, they go into the promised land, right? So they get this promise that they're going to be able to live in the land of milk and honey, but what they don't know is that they have to fight for it because there's other people there.
Mm-hmm.
So then they're led into the promised land through Joshua. All right? And after Joshua dies, there's all of these different heroes called judges. All right? And the last of the judges and one of the prophets is Samuel. All right, so Samuel is called to be a direct line to God. All right, and at this point, Samuel had already anointed um, Saul to be the first king of Israel. All right,
Anointed is
but
called.
but what happened was he wasn't faithful to God's direction. So God would tell Samuel what to tell Saul, and Saul didn't wasn't obedient. And it
Mm-hmm.
was one thing after another, and God was finally like, "All right, I've had it with this guy. Like, we're done." And this is how we're gonna get into First Samuel. All right,
Mm-hmm.
can you go ahead?
Yes.
We'll do 1 to 3.
Okay. The Philistines now mustered their army for battle and camped between Soko in
Oh,
Judah.
I'm sorry. Sorry. It's 1 Samuel 16.
Okay.
Sorry.
16, 1, 2, 3. Now the Lord said to Samuel, "You have mourned long enough for Saul. I have rejected him as king of Israel. So fill your flask with olive oil and go to Bethlehem. Find a man named Jesse who lives there, for I have selected one of his sons to be my king." But Samuel asked, "How can I do that? If Saul hears about it, he will kill me."
What?
Oh.
So what's going on here? Samuel hears the message, and God is saying, "Yeah,
He needs to
Saul
go.
is out. He's got to go,
Mm-hmm.
right? I need you to go to Bethlehem." Bethlehem. Where does that sound familiar? Who was born in Bethlehem? To be discussed later. Um, and and he said, "Go find a man named Jesse. I'm going to select one of his sons to be king," right? So what is his first response?
He's like, "The king Saul is going to kill me. How am I going to kick him
It's
out?"
like, how am I going to go over there and be like, "Oh, dude, I'll see you later. I'm going to go get your replacement"?
Yeah.
No. So Saul is scared.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of being like, "Oh yes, all powerful God, I will do whatever it is that you want." He's like, "This guy's going to kill me. Are you kidding me? I can't go." So then, how does God respond? All right, God responds with mercy, and he says this.
"Take a heifer with you," the Lord replied, "and say that you have come to make a sacrifice to the Lord. I- Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you which of his sons to anoint for me."
So then he's like, "All right, that's cool. I understand that you're a man and that you're scared. So I'm going to go ahead and have grace with you, and I'm going to give you a nice little excuse. You go down there and you're like, 'Hey guys, I'm just trying to you know, give this sacrifice. We'll all get together. We'll have a nice little celebration for God. And oh, Jesse, come on over." All right? So then he does, and he gets together with them, and he tells Jesse, "Bring me all of your children. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
bring me all of your sons." And he goes from one son to another, and he sees the eldest son, and he's like, "Oh, this has got to be the guy. This is the guy. Absolutely. Look at him. He's strong and big." But that was that wasn't the son that he chose.
Mm-mm.
And he goes from one son to the next, and just nothing until he's like, "Man, are you sure you don't have any more sons, Jesse?" And then let's see. Do you remember what happens after that?
He's like, "Well, I have one more who's out in the field,
Yes.
tends to the sheep."
So then we're gonna go down to First Samuel 16,
Mhm.
1 Samuel 16:11, which says,
Then Samuel asked, "Are these all the sons you have?" "They're still the youngest," Jesse replied, "but he's out in the fields watching the sheep and goats."
"All right, let's just stop right there." So Samuel is like, hey, I'm about to anoint one of your sons to be the king of Israel. And this man doesn't bring him all of his sons.
Mm-hmm.
He he,
Doesn't know.
he brings all of them except for the youngest one.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Probably assumed.
He assumed, he's like, nah, not the youngest one. There's absolutely no way. That one was kind of an accident. We didn't really think that one was gonna come. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
I can't verify that. I'm
Yep.
sorry. Biblically, I can't verify it.
Mm-hmm.
But he's underestimated. Does he even. I mean, do we know who he's talking about here?
Doesn't say
Who
his
the
name.
youngest son is?
We know because we read ahead.
So the youngest son
David.
is David, who ends up being King David,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what we see is he doesn't even call him by his name.
Mm-hmm.
So he underestimates David, and Saul is like, all right, we're not going to eat until you bring me David. So he goes, one of his brothers goes, and they bring back David. And then, let's see. Oh, I really want to see. So Jesse sent him for him in 12. He
Mhm.
said, he was dark and handsome with beautiful eyes. And the Lord said, this is the one, anoint him. You want to keep reading?
Mhm. So as David stood there among his brothers, Samuel took the flask of olive oil he had brought and anointed David with the oil. And the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David from that day on. Then Samuel returned to Ramah.
Ramah. Yes. So he gets anointed. He gets chosen. He's like, this is going to be the king of Israel. And then what happens? Does he become the king immediately?
No.
No, he's still a kid.
Mm-hmm.
He's still a kid. So God has chosen him for something. And a lot of times we feel like we're chosen to do something. Like, I want to be a lawyer to help people. I want to be a doctor. I want to be all of these things. But you don't become those things from one day to another.
Mm-mm.
And it says here that David was sent back to take care of the sheep, of the herd. Okay? So what we need to learn from David is that we can be chosen for something, but we also need to make sure that we're taking care of the responsibility that he's already given us. Whether it's a youth group, whether it's the homework that we have to do, whether it's a job that he's given us, whether it's siblings that we have to care
Mm-hmm.
for. Because what he's trying to see is, if I can trust you with this, then when it's time for you to take the next step, I'll be able to trust you with
Serve
that.
more. Mm-hmm.
So as he's taking care of these sheep, what kind of obstacles does God put in front of him?
What do you mean? Like
What- Yeah. What?
lions and stuff? Or
Yes, absolutely.
bears?
That you weren't listening to me.
I know,
Look,
sorry.
you see?
Was it bears or
It
Was
was a bear
a
and
bear
a lion.
and a lion? Okay, yeah, because they were coming to get the sheep and attack him, and he was able to overcome.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm
So
like, who takes down a bear?
yes. So God put that in front of him. God put that in front of him so that he could go ahead and overcome that issue, right?
Mhm.
So what we see is we're going to have obstacles. We just need to make sure that we're ready to go ahead and do what we need to do, rely on him, gain his presence, really gain that connection so that when it comes time to it, we're ready. Nothing can take us down. Because what happens sometime later, I don't know an exact amount of time, is Jesse, his father, who knows that he's been anointed to be king, says, hey, David, go ahead and take some lunch to your brothers that are in the front lines fighting with Samuel's army, with
Sauce.
King Saul's army. So what would David do? What does David do? What's his attitude when his dad Jesse is like, "Hey, go get your brothers some lunch."
Okay.
He humbles himself.
Mhm.
He's like, "Absolutely, whatever it is that you want. Absolutely." Right? Just like how you were saying, honor your mother and father. because it is the only commandment with a promise attached.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he does. He honors his father, and he goes out, and then what happens?
Well, I can tell you the end of the story. I don't know all the details
All
in
right.
between.
So then this is what happens. I did have to study this, but and you didn't listen to what I shared the other day,
Not yet.
but it's okay. I will have grace and mercy on my wife.
Thank you.
So, what ends up happening is that he gets to the front lines, and it's actually precisely when they're fighting against the Philistines. And the Philistines have this huge warrior. His name is Goliath. He is he's the Philistine champion of Gath. That's his name. And every day he comes out. He comes out, and what he does is he insults Israel. He insults their armies. He insults their God. Every day, I believe for 40 days, he's just coming out and he's just like, "Your God," saying all this stuff. And then David is like, "Are you guys hearing this?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Why are you putting up with this?
you're allowing him to say this about the troops of the living God, of the people of the living God of God?"
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, it gets him riled up. And what does he decide to do?
Confront him.
He decides to confront David.
Goliath.
Goliath.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to see exactly, because his words are incredible. Oh,
Right.
there we go. Okay, yeah, this is exactly what he says. In 1 Samuel 17:26, he says, David asked the soldiers standing nearby, uh, what will a man get? Oh, no, not this one. Let's go a little higher. How is he in the giant? Aw, I don't see it. I would tell you to look for it, but I don't think you could find it. But it's okay. So he's just like, how dare you say that about my God? And Saul hears about this. And Saul is like, what are you going to do? What is a child going to do against this gigantic warrior that's been a warrior his entire life? So he gets doubted again. How many times have you been doubted when when you share like a dream or your purpose with someone, and then they're like, yeah, there's no way you're going to be a doctor, or there's no way you're going to be able to be a pastor. There's
Mm-hmm.
no way you're going to be able to be the CEO of whatever, right?
Right.
And you get these friends, these allies that end up doubting you, right? Even though he's fighting for them, like your purpose could be like, I want to make sure that I take care of my family, but your family is like, yeah, you're not going to be able to accomplish that, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're coming from a good place because they don't want you to be disappointed, but that's not helpful,
No.
right? So the good thing is he doesn't base his identity on King Saul. He bases his identity on the fact that he was anointed by God.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And he's like, and so Saul says that to him, and and David comes back and he's like, when I've taken care of the herd, God sent a bear and a lion, and I was able to overcome them. When a lion would go ahead and grab a sheep, I would chase after that lion, and I would beat it to death. Or I would beat it until it released the sheep. And if it attacked me, then I would beat it to death, is what he said. So he's like, if our God could go ahead and allow me to conquer a bear and a lion, then this pagan Philistine is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes over there, and what they do is they try to put his armor, they try to put the
Saul's armor.
king's
Mhm.
armor on David, right? Because David hears that, and Saul hears that, and he's like, damn, well, if you're that confident, go for it, kid.
Mm-hmm.
So then they try to put his armor on, and it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. Why didn't it fit?
Because he was too young. He still hadn't grown enough.
Because he's a kid, and it's not his time to
Not
be
his-
the king.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So then he's like, yeah, I'm not wearing all this stuff. It's going to slow me down. So what does he do? He goes by the river, and he gets 5 smooth rocks.
Mhm.
And he goes up to that gigantic giant that is threatening to kill him with all the confidence in the world. And
Takes him down.
he takes him down and chops off his head.
Mhm.
So what we learn from here is that we're going to be called by God. We're going to be anointed to do big things, to have really big purposes. But we also need to make sure that we're really connecting with him in the process. That we're not just thinking about the end goal, but what kind of person do I need to become? What kind of leader do I need to be able to get to the point where if someone names me king, then they're like, absolutely, that's the king.
Mhm.
That's the king. All right? It's not just because you're anointed, it's because you're willing to go towards down the path, guided by his truth and his light.
Mhm. And yeah,
Absolutely.
letting him his work. You just let him work it in you. Something Maxwell said is like so that you can do things that when people look at you, they're like, yeah, there's no shadow of a doubt that that's God in him. Mhm.
Absolutely. And people will feel that. People will
Mhm.
see that. They'll be like, "Oh, I understand why you work with teens,
Mhm.
or I understand why you spread the word, or I understand what that your words just carry weight." And those are the kinds of people that we want to be. All right, guys? So
Mhm.
it's always a pleasure. We love you guys. Remember tomorrow, what is it? The
Thanksgiving.
18th
Mhm.
of November at 6 p.m. at Alfonso's house. We'll go ahead and put the address on the message. We love you guys. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and just make sure that you are just thankful. Think of everything that you appreciate, everything that you're grateful for that God gives you every single morning. And it's going to change the way you live. I like force myself to put in on some praise and worship in the morning, even if I like am more curious about how the Chicago Bulls did last night,
Mhm.
because it gets me where I need to go, and it gets me to a point where I can be grateful for what he does for me. Yeah.
Yes.
So do you want to do the challenge?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the
Awesome.
challenge? Yay! Is Chrissy gonna help us?
Yes.
All
We need two
right,
people.
come on over.
Have a seat.
You want to be the 2-person, or am I the 2-person?
Oh, it doesn't matter. You're already sitting there.
All right. I
know,
know,
right? I never
right?
do. Because usually it's like a question you need to answer.
That you need to know,
Here. One
and
paper for
other
you,
people
one
can't
paper
know.
for him. Are you guys right-handed? All right. So the challenge today, as fast and neatly as you can, with your left hand, write your full name.
Full name.
Yeah.
All right.
Ready? Go.
That's the challenge. Oh,
This looks so funny. You don't need the mic. Ismani would have you guys be. He had with his cast on the right arm. He got really well with his left hand. He cuts with his left hand now. Really? Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. What is it? Ambidextrous. I didn't think it would take this long. Oh, you did your short version of your name.
All right, I'll do my full name.
I said full name.
Oh, full name.
All right.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's really good.
Can you show the camera?
I think she. Okay.
Can you zoom in? Let me know where you can see them.
You guys be the judge. Let us know. I think we both did pretty good.
What do
We
you think?
nailed it.
You guys
Absolutely.
be the judge. Let me know who the winner
I
is.
just thought it was easier. Because it's boxier. It's just
It's hard.
lines.
They're both very sloppy. No, I'm kidding.
All right,
You guys
guys.
did very awesome.
All right, guys. But thank you so much. Have a happy Thanksgiving. We love you guys. We will see you in 2 weeks because some of us are going to be out of town for Thanksgiving. We love you guys. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.